topic related to bone because it is about the endocrine system, which is my favorite. So calcium homeostasis. Calcium is also, I love this topic because calcium is super important. We'll come back to why it's so important. Briefly want to mention it now though. So normal levels of calcium in the blood are maintained by several organs, and this is because normal calcium in the blood is important for many physiological functions. So the body's plasma concentration is very closely regulated. Calcium is very important for neural signaling, so synaptic release, muscle contraction, and cell signaling. We'll come back to several of these later in the semester. So what organs regulate this? It's more than one. First of all, because it's important. Second of all, because we have to be able to intake calcium as well as output calcium. So we need several organs and organ systems to be able to do this. So first of all, we got the intestines. Minerals such as calcium are absorbed from the diet. You eat calcium, ingest it, and then your small intestines absorb it. So this is a one-directional flow from the intestines into the blood. We also have bone. This goes both ways because osteoblasts deposit new bone matrix, and this results in less calcium in the blood when we have the production of new bone tissue. Osteoclasts break down existing matrix. This releases calcium into the blood. So that goes both directions with regulating blood calcium. Lastly, we've got the kidneys. Not the focus of the talk today, but they will come up, and just important to see as a big picture of calcium homeostasis. Calcium is lost in the urine and also retained in the body. And the decision for this can be made in the kidneys. This kidneys can regulate this. So in each of these cases, we are regulating normal levels of calcium in the blood. What is this called, this kind of process? This is called negative feedback. These organs that are shown here, in terms of a negative feedback diagram, what are they? What is the general name we call them? They are called targets or effectors. They are the organs that are talked to by some decision-making organ, and then that decision-making organ tells them, hey, do this. Either osteoclasts, do your thing. Osteoblasts, do your thing. So what's the receptor and the integrator then for maintaining normal calcium levels? It's going to be the parathyroid and thyroid gland. So we're going to preview a little bit of endocrinology here to talk about calcium homeostasis. Here is the thyroid and parathyroid. So this is a view from the back, the dorsal side. And so this would be the pharynx, and then here is the esophagus. The trachea is anterior to the esophagus. So we're looking from the posterior side here. And the thyroid is a butterfly-shaped organ from the front. From the back, you kind of can see these two parts here. And then the thyroid glands are four little tiny kind of bead or bean-like organs that are on top of the thyroid gland. So these two organs are going to be important for calcium homeostasis. They are both endocrine glands. What makes them endocrine glands is that they produce hormones. This means they produce chemical messengers that are released into the bloodstream and then affect other organs that have receptors for these hormones. The affected organs are going to be intestines, kidney, and bone, or three of them at least. The hormones released from these come back to, but it's going to be parathyroid hormone from the parathyroid gland, and calcitonin is the hormone I'll talk about today that's released from the thyroid gland. It's not the only hormone released from the thyroid gland. So let's start going through this. Here is one way to look at dysfunctional calcium levels. If you have normal calcium homeostasis is between 9 and 11 milligrams per 100 milliliters, don't need to know that. This response is triggered when calcium falls below those levels. So low calcium is going to trigger an imbalance. This is going to allow sensors in the parathyroid glands to detect this. Wait a minute, where's our integrator? Well, the parathyroid gland is also the integrator. This is a case where the parathyroid is both the receptor and the integrator. The parathyroid glands are going to decide whether or not to release PTH, parathyroid hormone, based on, oh, hey, calcium's low. Let's release PTH. Pretty simple. PTH is our output signal that is going to target the osteoclasts to degrade bone and thereby release calcium into the bloodstream. So what I would like you to be able to do is diagram this. So actually do this. I would pause the video, diagram the response to low blood calcium levels, including these components. Note I had the output signal here. Stimulus is low calcium. You should be able to do this. Okay, and I'll walk through it. So your receptor is the parathyroid gland. The integrator is as well. Output signal is PTH. That's going to affect the osteoclasts, cause them to have a response. The response that they have is the breakdown of bone, which is going to result in increased calcium levels. So we have the same 5 components I want you to have in all of these diagrams. Sometimes we'll ask you to include output and input as well. I like to include them along the arrow here because it's literally the signal that's going from the thyroid out to the targets. What else do I need here? I need my negative feedback. So we've got an arrow going back to turn off this loop. Once calcium increases, the system turns off. No more PTH is going to be produced because this is negative feedback. We don't want to keep producing PTH. We don't want to have bones break down more than we need to. In reality, this is not the only response from PTH. So this is showing low calcium, the response of parathyroid hormone, PTH. This is the one that we're going to be focused on here. I like to include this here because you can see how you could easily diagram this with other targets as well. So PTH is also going to increase intestinal absorption of calcium. It's also going to increase reabsorption from the kidneys. All 3 of these are going to result in calcium increases in the blood in response to the stimulus, which was low calcium. So kind of cool. Then we've got a different stimulus, high calcium. This is going to cause the thyroid gland to respond. It's going to be the receptor as well as the integrator. The thyroid gland releases calcitonin in response to the stimulus, and that's going to cause a bone response and a kidney response. Of course, our focus here is going to be the bone. This is going to decrease osteoclast activity. There's also some evidence that it may increase osteoblast activity as well. Both of those cell activity changes would result in less calcium release and decreased calcium in the blood. At the same time, calcitonin is going to decrease the reabsorption of calcium in the kidneys, meaning where does it go? It gets lost in the urine. Pee out calcium, so we have less in the blood. So I'd like you to be able to diagram this as well with the same components, but they're going to be different specifics, right? So high calcium is our stimulus. Pause to diagram this. Okay, receptor and integrator are both the thyroid. Output signal is calcitonin. The target and effector is osteoclasts and somewhat osteoblasts. You just put one, that's fine. Kidneys as well, but that's not what we're diagramming here. If you put kidneys for this and had that right, that's fine. If I asked this on an exam, I would try to be specific if I wanted this. If you know the kidney one, that's fine. The response of this is going to be less bone breakdown because we have less osteoclast activity and more bone deposition. So let me just make sure that that is clear here. Let's write here. You want to be sure we know that that's less bone breakdown and more bone deposition. So osteoclasts are going to be active less to cause less breakdown. Osteoblasts are going to be active more to cause increased deposition. Either way, this is going to decrease calcium in the blood and negative feedback. Notice both of these examples are negative feedback, even though the direction of the response is different. One increases calcium, one decreases calcium, still negative feedback either way, because either way, we're acting to turn off the system. Okay, now the learning check here. The hormone that stimulates the release of calcium ions from the bone matrix is what? What hormone is the output signal? It does this by increasing or decreasing the breakdown of bone matrix. By what cell type? What other organs does this hormone act on? Okay, parathyroid hormone, and it's going to do this by increasing the breakdown of bone. And it's going to do this by acting on osteocytes. Do not have that in the best place there. This goes with this, right? And then this is our cell type. Also acts on the intestines and the kidney. Okay, how about this one? Paget's disease is a rare bone disease in which bone is resorbed too quickly, then replaced by weak, brittle bone. If you were to just give one of the hormones to treat this, what would you give and why? Okay. Calcitonin. Why? Because this hormone decreases osteoclast activity, also increases osteoblast activity. This is going to allow for bone that is not resorbed too quickly, slow down that resorption, and increase the production of new bone tissue by osteoblasts as well. This is going to allow for more bone matrix to be produced. So these individuals have too much bone resorption via osteoclasts, and then there's this really quick bone formation that's poor quality because it just can't keep up. So this is actually the thing that's most important here, is this decrease in osteoclast activity, because it's just happening so fast the body cannot do it properly. Do it meaning replace it properly. Okay, so what we've done here is explain the roles of parathyroid hormone and calcitonin in plasma calcium regulation and bone remodeling. So there's two hormones, the focus there. We also did this, which is kind of the bigger one, incorporates those two hormones, the roles of them. Draw a diagram, describe the feedback loops that regulate calcium homeostasis. So this is drawing those feedback loops. Note, I do have intestines, kidneys, as well as the osteoclasts in here, because I think you should be able to draw those loops as well. Please do focus on the bones though, since that's what this is the focus right now.